in advance of South Africa's case being heard at the International Court of Justice, meaning the day before the trial started, Benjamin Netanyahu just coincidentally put a video out where he changed his tune a little bit. Interesting that the day before your country goes on trial at the highest court at the United Nations, you would come out and, try and turn on the charm a little bit to make it sound like, hey, I just want to be clear, we actually do value Palestinian lives. Here's Benjamin Netanyahu right before, coincidentally, his country is put on trial.
Make a few points absolutely clear. Israel has no intention of permanently occupying Gaza or displacing its civilian population. Israel is fighting Hamas terrorists,
I am reassured.
not the Palestinian population. And we are doing so in full compliance with international law.
Big misunderstanding.
The IDF is doing its utmost to minimize civilian casualties, while Hamas is doing its utmost to maximize them by using Palestinian civilians as human shields. The IDF urges Palestinian civilians to leave war zones by disseminating leaflets, making phone calls, providing safe passage corridors, while Hamas prevents Palestinians from leaving at gunpoint, and often with gunfire. Our goal is to rid Gaza of Hamas terrorists and free our hostages. Once this is achieved, Gaza can be demilitarized and de-radicalized, thereby creating a possibility for a better future for Israel and Palestinians alike.
Hang on, he's going to stop sending suitcases of cash to Hamas to prevent more moderate elements from prevailing in their political process?
I don't know.
Is that what he's saying? He's going to stop paying Hamas like he's been doing for years?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that was his entire statement, so I don't think he made any such commitments. But I'm glad he was able to clear up the misunderstanding that he didn't give a shit about how many innocent people he kills in Gaza. It's kind of funny how the day before you go on trial, you come out with a video like that. Really unbelievable.
That's their butt Trump. It's butt Hamas.
Right. That's their butt Trump. Exactly. That's their butt Trump. And this was in a previous segment, so if you're watching the clipped version of this, Russell just read on his phone a breaking announcement from Netanyahu in response to day one of the trial. He's back to his old defiant self before Israel, I guess, gets to make their counter argument. But really just incredible. Even more incredible, though, it wasn't just Netanyahu who changed his tune the day before the trial. Here's Secretary of State, basically de facto president of the United States, Antony Blinken, on January 9th. All of a sudden, week before the trial, everybody wants to make sure that everybody understands how much they care about the people in Gaza being slaughtered and how big a priority their safety actually is. So here is Benjamin Netanyahu's partner in crime coming out and doing his mug for the camera in advance of the International Court of Justice trial. Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
The daily toll on civilians in Gaza, particularly on children, is far too high. Important progress has been made in increasing the amount of aid getting into Gaza, including by opening Kerem Shalom. Nonetheless, 90% of Gaza's population continues to face acute food insecurity, according to the United Nations. For children, the effects of long periods without sufficient food can have lifelong consequences.
You know, it's too bad we're just bystanders in this. It is too bad we cannot do anything about this. He's talking like he's on a Save the Children ad, this motherfucker.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The Sarah McLachlan music's going to come on underneath him any second.
Yeah, like he's speaking for a humanitarian aid society that really gives a shit about the Gazan people and is helpless to stop this terrible crime. It's just the hypocrisy is unbelievable, man. It's unreal that he would get up there and give a speech like this.
Yeah, and this red herring of the aid. Well, we're getting aid in. The aid is not the issue, just like the temporary pause was not the issue. Remember the temporary humanitarian pause that Bernie Sanders and Liz Warren were pushing for? Well, they got it. It lasted 3.5 days, and then it lifted. And when it lifted, what happened? The bombing got worse. More people are being killed. So all of these red herring arguments about humanitarian aid and humanitarian pauses and stuff like that, that is all to run out the clock on Gaza until Israel completes its ultimate objective, which is the conquering of that land and the claiming of that land for themselves. Now Netanyahu's saying, we just want to be clear, it's not our goal to occupy Gaza, even though there are pictures of us leveling neighborhoods and literally planting our flag in the soil.
Yeah, we're liberating them from Hamas.
Yeah,
it's very Vietnam. It's very Vietnam. We're freeing these people from the Viet Cong, and we have to destroy their villages in order to save them from the VC.
Exactly. Here's Anthony Blinken going on more about the aid that they're trying to get in. To a population now of about 2 million crammed into half of the territory that they previously occupied, which was already amongst the most densely populated plots of land on Earth.
More food.
Who are being bombed even there now. And I don't know if they've continued with this absurd scheme. We talked about it in the past as a fig leaf over this genocide. They came up with like zip code maps where they're supposed to tell the people, okay, so go here now. Like, this would be like if you got to move to another zip code with your entire family at the drop of a hat to avoid bombing.
Right. Yeah, you did mention that on the air in the past, for sure.
Water, more medicine, other essential goods need to get into Gaza, and then once they're in Gaza, they need to get more effectively to the people who need them.
Yeah, that's important. It's important when the bombs are dropping on your house that you have medicine, because that really keeps you from getting bombed, right?
This is why they pay them the big bucks.
Yeah. No, food and medicine are really important,
It's always interesting to watch a psychopath pretend to be human.
Right.
Look at how he's trying to. Okay, so when people are emotionally moved, their face pinches up a little bit. So let me try that.
Well, these are the people in politics who actually run the world. And I talked a little bit about this on the Jimmy Dore show when we were on. I think I brought this up on Monday, or maybe even with Jimmy when I sat in on a segment. This is why Biden really exposes the ugly face of the American empire in ways that even Trump couldn't, because Biden is such a non-entity as an executive that you see right through him to guys like this. Guys like Anthony Blinken are the bloodless, soulless vampires who actually run the world. They exist in every White House, but you don't see them because the president's job is to be a personality, to be a figurehead, so you never see the ghouls behind the scenes or you don't pay them much mind. That was the case with Trump, was the case with Obama, right? But Biden is he has no presence because he's not even there. So we see straight through him to the guys like this who really run the world. Blinken, as Russell said, he's not human enough to run for office. He could never win an election. He has no charisma, and he's no relatability whatsoever. No one would ever vote for this fucking guy. So he has to play this kind of role. And it's the president's job to obscure this kind of role by being a dynamic presence themselves. That's part of what leadership actually is. Right. And Biden has no such qualities. And so who do we hear from? Him. We haven't even heard from Biden about this. We heard from John Kirby about this. We've heard from Anthony Blinken about this. Have we heard one word from the president of the United States about our biggest ally in the region on trial for genocide? We haven't heard a peep
about that specifically. No, I mean when he got interrupted at the church, he did his little, we're talking to them. He did that thing.
Yeah, but about this specifically, we haven't heard a damn thing.
He hasn't said anything about that. I started watching. Okay, so take file this under, right and left just don't mean anything anymore. So Hillsdale College, which is very Christian, but they present themselves as they're preserving the idea of a classical education and a Western style education. But obviously a lot of the people they hire are alumni from Republican administrations, a lot of the people they hire to teach. So I started watching. They have a series on foreign policy being taught by a veteran of both the Bush and the Trump White Houses. And he's getting into it all from the angle that there are these unelected bureaucrats like Anthony Blinken who actually run things, and that's what he found being in that position, that in the end it's not the executives, it's not the presidents, it's not the politicians whose names who actually make these decisions, that there is actually this permanent deep state that really make these decisions. Now, to hear that kind of a critique, you'd almost have to, from somebody who's actually been at that level of the game, you'd almost have to go and listen to somebody who came out of a Republican administration, because you'll never hear that from a veteran of the Democrats, and that is a traditionally left kind of critique.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. All right, we still got a little more from Antony Blinken.
It can to remove any obstacles from crossings to other parts of Gaza, improving deconfliction procedures to ensure that the aid can move safely and securely.
Here's a list of things Israel has to do, by the way. This is what he's rattling off.
The United Nations is playing an indispensable
Notice on that list is not
addressing the
stop bombing them. Nowhere on that list.
They're speaking to them quietly.
Exactly. All right, we'll let this play out.
Humanitarian needs in Gaza. There is simply no alternative. UN personnel and other aid workers in Gaza are demonstrating extraordinary courage by continuing to provide life-saving services in what are extremely challenging conditions.
And paying for that with their lives, because a lot of them are being killed. So, yeah, I mean, just incredible how in lockstep the United States and Israel both send their leaders, because Antony Blinken is our leader. On foreign policy, he's the one calling the shots, right? I mean, Joe Biden, that's just a joke. So Netanyahu and Antony Blinken both rushed in front of a camera to sort of hedge on their sort of genocidal intents right before this trial starts. But that's a sign that the trial is at least on their mind.
Well, Blinken, it's like he's talking about the aftermath of a hurricane.
Right.
You know, he very carefully avoids talking about why they're in a position where they're dying this way.
Right. Yeah, it's a humanitarian crisis. No, it's not a humanitarian crisis. Like Hurricane Katrina was a humanitarian crisis. This is a slaughter being perpetrated by your friend.
This is a genocide.
Right.
Yes.
This is a genocide. Indeed.
Please clap.